Hello and welcome to the live coding happy hour, where we get on the air and code on ServiceNow. My name is Dave Slusher. I am a platform developer evangelist with ServiceNow, and with me is my partner,
Josh Nerius. I also am a developer evangelist at ServiceNow, and I work on Dave's team.
So this is the first time that we've done this in almost a month. We didn't do it for the end of the year and right before the holidays, and then for various extenuating circumstances, we didn't do the first couple of weeks of this year. So it's good to be back. We're going to focus this time on the automated testing framework. And we were kind of joking amongst ourselves before we turned this on that this is probably, other than the very first time, this was Josh's frame, by the way. I didn't think this up. Other than the very first time, this is like the most pure example of what our original concept was, where we have no real agenda and no real destination. The idea is to kind of explore just the coding and how you do the job and how you get somewhere. So what we're going to do is, I have adopted for myself and successfully the role of guy who really cares about ServiceNow automated testing. And through Knowledge last year, I had a presentation that was kind of well attended and kind of got a little bit of thought leadership in this space. So we have this testing framework now that, as of Istanbul, rolls out pre-built. Sadly, we're talking like we went all the way through early access. We're now in general, like it's released. It's out for everybody. I still have spent practically no time working with the automated testing framework, which is pretty pathetic considering that I'm, wannabe automated testing guy. So we're just going to spend an hour playing with it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take actual projects, maybe one, we might switch over to another different one. But we're going to take our actual projects and kind of figure out, okay, we've got the testing framework. What is it that we want to test? Like, you've got that day zero issue where you say, okay, I'd like to have some automated tests. What's the first one I write? How do I start? We don't actually know the answer to any of these questions. All we're doing is asking questions and seeing if we can figure out the answer for the next hour. So before we get into that was kind of a long-winded explanation. Before we get too much farther, Josh, what are you drinking?
So I'm actually going a little non-traditional today. I have, I'm fighting a headache, so I am drinking coffee, but it's no ordinary coffee. I've got Stumptown cold brew, and Stumptown, I think, are based out of Seattle. It's delicious stuff.
And I'm drinking a New South white ale. This is a local thing. It's brewed right down the road in Myrtle Beach. So it's a kind of a good winter brew. So I'll be holding down the happy hour portion for both of us this time. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the screen share. Did I remember to shut down everything I want to shut down? Maybe not. I may need you to talk for 1 second.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I will be watching the other screen. So like Dave mentioned, this is definitely going to be a little bit closer to our original goal. And for anyone who has not seen one of these, that goal is pretty much to just hack on stuff, and we don't guarantee that it's going to work. So we always like to throw that out there at the beginning of these broadcasts, because we don't know that we're going to get to a successful result, but we know that we're going to learn something along the way. So that is certainly the case with ATF. I haven't actually done anything with ATF at all, so I'm pretty excited to start digging into this and see what is going to happen. So your screen looks good, by the way, Dave, I think. All right. Wait a second. No, well, it might be locked to me still.
I tried to lock it to myself. Let me try this one more time. We had all right, here we go.
Let's see. Yeah.
Well, and I should have hidden the avatars as well. Are we locked to me? You talk for a second. We'll see if it bounces to you.
Yeah, so I am talking. It looks like it is not bouncing to me, and the avatars are now gone. So we are good.
All right. So what I've got here is we are in my travel tracker application. So we've been working on the integration portion for the last few weeks. By the way, the thing works. That's actually, I realized I came so close to swearing because that would be my natural my natural inclination would be to actually have sworn. There's some words I didn't say in there. Interesting.
Syntax error.
Oh, so hey, there you go. So this test would have found this. I realized something. We're actually running into the fact that I have a dependency on an external, this thing has a dependency, like my flight depends on a ServiceNow generic schedule table. Did I somehow lose that project?
Oh, interesting.
How would that have happened? So that there actually is a big problem here.
And what's this error telling us? So it's saying that an access rule violation
detected by database. The table does not exist. The SN generic schedule doesn't exist. All right, so we have two ways we can go. We can actually explore this, or we can just do something else and not worry about this. Or actually, you know what we can do? We can just write the tests, because this is now probably going to fail, right? Because
that's a good point. This is kind of the perfect failure scenario.
Or am I looking at? Hold on one second. I'm gonna take 1 second and realize I might be looking at the wrong local instance. So
okay, that would make sense.
Let's
because it looks like there were definitely a few things gone.
Yeah, because this is probably. Did I start this one on Helsinki? No. Oh, you know what? We are absolutely looking at the wrong instance, because I realize now there was a reason why I stopped developing on the local instance.
Oh, it's got to be able to hit your endpoint.
Got to be able to hit my webhooks, which is why I stopped my local instance and we went here. So, dong. All right. So we'll do the same thing, but we're going to do it on a cloud-hosted instance, which is why I was going to show. All I was trying to show here was the fact that if you look at my table, you see that these things are actually populated. You can see. This is like the very end of the bake-off. Is, you know, a month ago we were fiddling with this, and you see that I actually set them up, and you can see statuses and all these flights. I would set them up, and they have all arrived, and etc. So let's go ahead and pop open the studio on this.
That is super cool, by the way. I know that we didn't ever focus on watching it end to end and during the live coding happy hours. We were kind of working on the functionality, but that is super cool.
All right, so now we've got this open travel tracker. So let's just go ahead and we'll open the testing framework. So we'll look at some of the built-in tests. We'll use those as a model. Automated test. And again, oh, you know what I don't have is probably the demo data on this guy. And you can, I don't think I've ever done this. You can install the demo data after the fact, right?
I believe you can. I think you can just reactivate the plugin and then just check the box and it should work. And like everything else that we do on this broadcast, we are going to test that theory.
And one of the other things, load demo data only. Okay. So one of the things I don't remember, I've been doing this so much that I also don't remember, does the test framework come activated out of the box on Istanbul? Do you remember, or do you have to go in and activate it?
I believe it is activated. I think it's activated out of the box. You do have to turn on a property in order to enable test running, but I believe that on a brand new instance, it is active.
Okay. So this is an example of the basic test. So in this one, this may be the one that I'm just going to kind of model this on. Is, you know, start out, you're going to impersonate a user, you open a form, you set some values, you submit it, and you just want to make sure that it's not blowing up. That's all that this is doing. And I noticed it says copy, and I don't have a run test, so I might have to also go and activate that property. So let's go to.
And you're looking for the run test property?
Yes.
Actually, just look. I think you can get to it from the navigator. So if you look for automated test property.
Okay.
Yeah. There'll be something there. They have a properties page. I think there are a couple of other properties too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, I'm going to have to be in global, which is why I can't do that.
And the reason this is defaulted to false is that you never want to run this in a production system. So they're just making sure that you actually want this on. So they make you turn it on.
Okay, so we've turned that on. We go back to our tests. We should get to run this on the basic UI test. All right, run test is now there. And it's doing part of the test. And now you notice, so it's basically did the server-side steps, which is impersonate, et cetera, et cetera. You notice it is now in this state here. Is this actually big enough for me? Let me zoom in one time. Waiting for a browser to pick up this test. Click here, and this will open in a new tab the test runner. So here we've got the test runner. We're going to see down in this iframe here, we're going to see in a second. Yeah, there you go. There's that test is running. Taking screenshot. Submit, posting the screenshot to the thing, so we got a test runner sitting there, and actually it failed. Let's go to the result. What did it fail at? Client-side JavaScript error was detected on the page. Interesting.
Interesting.
And what was see the logs and screenshots on the test results? Okay. And down here in test log. Okay. Step did not execute.
So basically, these steps didn't go at all because they were set to not execute the previous step.
Correct. Your uncaught async test is not defined. Interesting.
Really? Yeah, that sounds pretty odd.
Interesting. Okay. So there you go. There's a built-in test that did not run. I'm going to go ahead. So let's go ahead and I don't really care that much about the built-in test, other than the fact that I'm not trying to run it. I just I want to use it. I want to use it as a model. Where did all that stuff go?
You know what happened is it impersonated.
Oh, because it died in the middle.
So yeah, this is actually a really interesting point to talk about, because this is why you can open that test runner by yourself. So you can pre-launch this. So theoretically, you might want your test runner running in an incognito window.
Oh, that may very well be. That may very well be what happened. Oh, you're right, because that's why. In fact, that's why it failed. Let's go ahead and leave this. I'm going to reload. I'm going to relaunch the test runner, because so I'm going to have to go back to myself, or not myself, but admin. I think that is exactly what happened, because bear in mind, it ran the first step, and then I clicked the thing to launch the test window. So I launched the test window as ATF user.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll bet you. Let's go ahead and just for completeness sake, let's do that.
We'll find out.
So I want to pre-open the test runner, client test runner. And in fact, let's do this again. I want another window. Unfortunately, I don't have that nice little window that opened in a new tab. So let's go back to tests. And I'm guessing that if I run the test again, it will work. This is just a hypothesis.
We will find out. So
I don't know this for a fact.
And I'm curious too.
Another
because,
test is running. Wait for it to.
Oh, interesting. Click here to see. So you did kick off that other one and then stop. I wonder.
Let's cancel the pending steps of this one. And then let's see. Test run queue. I'm gonna go ahead and just delete this. Actually, let's go and look at it before I do that. Let's see what's in here.
Yeah, maybe there's some kind of cancellation.
Show progress. So this is the one.
Interesting.
What I don't know is
Try
why
the
this
show
one
progress.
doesn't. Yeah. I don't know is why this one.
So it says with 2 to 4. Oh, and we do have the option to cancel it now, so you can do it
I'm just curious to see if it wasn't necessarily. I wonder if maybe the fact that it was kind of in the middle and then I navigated away didn't leave it in a weird state. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cancel pending steps of this one. So at this point, our queue should now be empty.
Cool.
So let's go to test run queue. There should be nothing waiting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go back. We're still testing the hypothesis. This is going to run when I don't when I didn't invoke it, the test runner from. All right. Over here, this guy's running. That guy's running.
And it does make me wonder, because I know before we had that thing running in its own window. Well, no, I wouldn't think that there would be any libraries loaded by the main UI because it should all be self-contained.
Right. All steps. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So hypothesis confirmed. The fact that so there's a gotcha that I would not have run across if we hadn't screwed it up this way, which is don't start a test. Don't wait until you started a test that does impersonation and then pop open your client runner.
Yeah. Or if you do, probably make sure you do it in a different browser.
Yes. I don't even know if a different. Yeah, I guess it would, because it would have a different user session. So, okay. All right. So now, all that said, I'm going to leave global space now, and let me go back to my travel tracker space, and let us create a new test. And so I wonder if I come over here to tests. Also, I don't know the UI action exactly. I don't know exactly what this does. Let's press the button and see if that copies a test. What I hope is it'll create a new test in my scope. So basic test that impersonates ATF user. I'm also actually making an assumption that the test is scope aware, which it may or may not be.
Interesting point.
Because I noticed that there's not, like, typically in a, that you can't create these from the studio. I'm assuming it's in a scope, but I don't know that for a fact.
If you show XML on this record, we can take a look at that.
Okay. Let's do that. No, there it is. It is in syspackage travel tracker. Okay. So it is.
Okay, good.
So it's just not exposed on the UI, but it is there. Okay. So let's name this like simple light form. So update this. Step one is, and let's go. Because any table that doesn't have updated on it, one of the first things I'm going to, in the list, one of the first things I'm ever going to do is add updated, because it's almost always how I look at things. So ATF user, I don't think that's the one I want to use, right? I think I may want, I think I want a specific user for this test, because I need to have, I don't want ATF user, I'm sure it's there as an example, but like, I don't want to give every possible role every test needs to the same user, right?
Yeah.
So let's create.
Yeah, depending on the kind of testing you're doing, that could have some weird overlaps. So it's probably best practice to think about this right off the bat.
So let's create a travel tracker. No, let's create. We'll call it travel tracker user again. One of the intractable problems of development. I'm not going to do any of this stuff. I'm just going to leave it that way. Do I have to have an email?
You don't have to. It'll work without it. That works too. And then does your travel tracker app have roles specific to it at this point?
It does, yes.
Cool.
So let's submit that. And but I don't remember, or at least I thought I did.
What is the scope name?
That is, yes, that's what I'm looking for now. Flight.
Oh, it's SN.
SN travel tracker. All right.
Got it.
All right. So I'm just going to give it all of these things. It's a user of all these guys. Okay. So our ATF user has, the user privileges of every single one of these tables. All right. So now let me go back to my test. And why, oh, why have I not done this?
Shortcuts.
Okay.
are a beautiful thing.
And you know what? I realize I made a naming convention error here. A test, because when you look at that simple flight form over there in the thing,
yep,
doesn't necessarily jump out to you that that's in fact a test. All right. So step one, I'm going to go into this impersonation, and this may or may not be the best way to do this. It seems kind of like the starting and modifying seems like we may find problems why it's better to do them from the ground up. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do this one. We'll see how it goes. Open a new form. So I'm just basically going to change every one of these, and I'm going to open the flight form. Flight form. And I noticed actually here's in fact this might be a reason to consider that is the description.
Oh yeah, right.
Not editable. Oh no! Look at that.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's auto-generated. So that wasn't. Yeah, that's auto-generated from the test and the so the step config and the table. Interesting. I had no clue that this is why exactly why
today we learned.
I did not know that was auto-generated. Okay, cool. All right. We're going to set some field values. Now this is one definitely we're going to have to I don't know if we're going to need to do a little bit of we may have to create a new step config, because what I want to do, I don't know that this is actually going to work. I'm going to create, what else do I need to do? This needs an actual, all right, it needs a start time. And I need it to be today. I wonder, set date from a contextual value.
And I think that can be the output of some previous step. So if you had done something before the step, you could do that.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, so we might want to. Can I do a? What's a? All right, here we go.
What if we can do a scripted step and then somehow take the output of that step?
Certainly. I wonder, can I do? Let's go to our favorite site, which you didn't even plug. We both work on this site, and we didn't plug it. Developer.servicenow.com. So let's go to. There is no glide date time functionality on the client side, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's very minimal. However, actually, well, this is an interesting question.
Do we have a now? We could do just the sheer JavaScript now function, right?
Yeah, you might be able to do that because it should be running. The definition of the step, I believe, is running server side.
But this is so it's field. Oh, you're saying the field values. Let's hey, rather than discussing it.
Yeah, let's try it.
Is this the right syntax?
gs.now. I think it's just JavaScript and then colon. I don't think you want to do parens around the whole thing. Just parent. Yeah, just take out that first parentheses. And is it now or is it now date time? I don't remember.
Let's go to. Let's go ahead and look at Istanbul, because I am on Istanbul. Client system.
Oh, you're looking at.
Oh, we want glide date.now. I was thinking.
Glide system. Actually, I think it's because we're in the scoped version, so maybe there's not a scoped version of that.
Ah. You are right.
But it does make me wonder if you were to call, so if we do a global GS function, if it's going to work.
I don't know. There's another question is when we run this, are we running it from the scope or are we running it from global?
Right.
Again.
All discovery today.
Empirically determinable, but we don't know.
So now is the current date, and then now date time is date time. So I guess.
No, I think I want now date time. Let's try.
I think you're right.
And then let's just pick me go back to my list. Again, we've already got crazy tab creep, but we're going to creep it some more. So I just want to pick any flight that I know exists. So what I'm going to do is all I want to do here is I want to pick a known flight. I'm fine with DL 2430. Any of them is good enough to me. DL 2430. I want to pick a known flight because I want to see, after I submit this, I want to be able to assert and see, did it come back with the unique identifier for this?
Right.
So this right here, already a risk.
Yeah.
In terms of brittleness of test. Don't love this. Because, you know, the flight can be renamed. You know, that flight absolutely can go away at any time.
You may have to come up with a more dynamic initialization process or something.
Yeah, I mean, it might be nice. It might be worth considering. You know, it could even provide a scripted REST API or something like that that provides any, you know, just looks up any flight that's leaving in the next half hour from anywhere to anywhere.
Well, and this is also a situation where I think you would commonly want to set up some kind of mocking, because you don't necessarily want to have automated tests that are out there hitting your APIs, especially something like, you know, FlightAware, which is pricey. So it might be another consideration.
That is actually that is actually a real consideration, is that this is going to hit the real, as you said, this is going to hit the real server, the real integration, which will really work on a real money bill, which is going to my corporate card right now. I don't know that I've ever actually, so I don't think I've ever hit the threshold where they billed me, honestly, because I've never had to file that expense report. So that is worth knowing that I have been fiddling with this at a low level for 3 years, and I've never actually incurred the first bill yet. So that is worth knowing. That I'm sure there's got to be some heuristic in there where it's not worth billing on, you know, you don't, the cost of credit card billing
is probably more than what you spent.
Right. So there's got to be some minimum threshold where they're even not going to consider billing until it's, you know, well over that. So I need this to be originated at Hartsfield. So we're still, what I'm still doing is just picking the right, I'm picking a set of values that will actually do what I think is going to, you know, let's just stop there.
See if this thing works.
See if this thing works. Right. So what we want to do is then, now let's go back to my test. Good thing I bookmarked it. So we set some field values, we submitted it. Now what I want to do is add a test step, which is, I want to set, what's the field value validation. And I'm inserting that. If you saw, actually, let me cancel that. Let me go back, because let me highlight this a little more. Note that I can insert it anywhere in the middle here.
Okay, very nice.
So I have the ability to put it at the beginning or after any specific step. So you don't have to have, you know, necessarily thought it through. I don't know. There's got to be like by execution order way to move them around afterwards. But what I want to do is now do a field values validation, and the only thing I care about at this point is just making sure that the field value for the unique identifier, the FA flight ID, is not empty.
Okay. That makes sense.
If I do that, and what is this thing that's hanging over here? Yeah, okay, that's just the condition builder. So if that's not empty, then success. Do I want to have a timeout? Now, this is one of the things we also discussed a little bit is, so because I'm going to submit the form, it's going to go directly to a workflow. It's going to go to a workflow, which has latency. The workflow is going to hit an API, which has latency. So the question is, do I have the ability? I don't know if there is a test step that is basically wait.
That's a good question. So I wonder if you can do that server side.
Custom scripted step. So I don't see. So these are what I have available here. So click. So I have open form, open record.
And that might be that timeout where you're essentially, and I've seen this in some other test frameworks outside of the platform, where you'll basically say, assert that this value is there, and the timeout is how long you're going to wait for that to happen.
Right.
I don't know if that's exactly how we're doing it, but I suspect that might be the case.
Yeah, and I don't see a wait. So let's go ahead and let's give that a 3 second. Let's give it 3 seconds, which I think should be plenty.
That makes sense. Also, when you go back to the list, take a look at the description on your step that's setting a date time.
Look at the description on the date time. Oh, look at that.
It's coming through.
Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah, it has, in fact, dereferenced JavaScript now.
Yes.
Oh, super sweet. So look at that, 58. So, but now here's the problem. Let's go back and look at it. Let's take,
is it always going to be changing?
Is it dynamic, or did it set itself to a hard-coded that time and now it's there forever?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, so here's the problem. I think that it probably is not going to change the description until you change something else about the step. What I don't know is, will it re-exercise that? I think it's going to dynamically re-execute this.
Yeah, I'll bet that's what it did. Is at some point is evaluating all these things to fill that.
Yeah.
But it still got that. Okay. So it did not, well, it didn't trade, it didn't substitute this into that.
Right? Correct. Yeah. And so I think when you run the test, it's still going to be okay, because this is still looking for things like, is this a dynamic value from the previous step? So I'm guessing that this is going to run.
All right.
And always be, but we'll find out.
Tell you what, let's talk more rock. Now we're going to do it. So half an hour in, we're going to hit the run test on an actual.
But considering we have no experience with this, so
right. Again, like I said, I've demoed this in webinar type situations. I did this on TechNow just the other day. This is my absolute first time I've authored one of these things for a real project. So my first non-demo attempt at this. So if I come over to my test runner, it's test running. It's doing my thing.
Oh, look at that dynamic start time.
I like it. And what happened? All right. One or more steps failed. It's entirely possible that I may be missing another mandatory field.
That makes sense. Now, the interesting thing here is that this is worth noting, is that anytime you run these tests, it clears out, it rolls back the data that you create.
So you can't check it.
You can't look at the records themselves, but that's where the screenshots come in. So we can actually take a look at the screenshots of what the page was at the time of the error.
And note too, this is exactly that same error we saw before.
Yeah, that's interesting. Something's.
Now I'm going to refresh this whole page and see what user does it think the test page is.
Good point.
System administrator. Cannot find async test.
Does the ATF user have any specific roles? I wonder if we have to add something to your.
Ooh, that would. In fact, that's an incredibly astute observation there, because that's probably like what would have made it fail the first time, right? Is it? Well, no, instead of running as admin. Well, I don't know. Let's look at ATF here. Let's figure that out.
Because it seems like there might be some roles. Looks like it's got something down there. Well, it looks like they just gave it a lot of stuff. So
I don't
those
see anything. I don't see anything. There's no
nothing
groups
specific to ATF that I can see.
Yeah, these are just
kind of what you would expect based on those out-of-box tests.
Exactly. It's just the stuff it needs to do the work that they want ATF user to do. In fact, this is basically why we created our own user, is because we don't want to, we don't want to take this set of stuff, and then throw another thing in there and do that for everything.
And we don't want to assume users have those roles.
Right. All right, so we go back to this. And it's that async test. Step failed, JavaScript error. And this was uncaught reference error, async test, not defined. And this was status failure as a client error. Async test is not defined.
Can we take a look at those screenshots? I'm curious to see.
Sure. Let's look at this one. Let's look at them both. So this is one screenshot. That's probably the first one.
Yeah, it doesn't look quite right either.
Well, it's kind of, so I'm sure it's missing all the CSS and
Yeah, that's
like
a good
the
point.
CSS that draws the borders and et cetera, et cetera. So you're getting kind of a bare bones.
There's a third screenshot over there too.
Whoop.
I don't know how many. Yeah, it looks like a total of 3.
Let's open this one.
And so now it's got your values, so it's actually gone through. Interesting.
What's the difference between this one and this one?
Those look awfully similar. Yeah, yes. I don't see any.
Notice,
one has the delete button, the other does not.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the submit. This is post submit. And note the timestamps here.
Yeah, yeah. So this is interesting. I wonder, just for sake of testing, if you were to pop up, say, Firefox and just fire up a dedicated test runner over there, so it has nothing to do with your administrative function or session.
Okay. We might have to do this on another screen. I don't actually even since I'm a fairly dedicated user, I'm not even sure. Am I logged in? Okay, so I'm gonna have to cover me, brother. I need to do a little bit of
yeah, while you're doing that, I'm going to take a look at the comments in live chat and see what we've got. So Philip mentioned you didn't search for roles using the Star Travel wildcard. That is true. We could have done that. That may have helped find that scope. Kevin says that he believes the minimum is $5. So that is good to know.
For FlightAware to bill me.
Yeah. Okay. That was and then a comment about did wonder why the order is 1, 2, 3, not 100, 200, 300, etc. That's a good question. I think usually those gaps make it easier for developers or administrators in ServiceNow to kind of take that stuff, to reorder those things without going crazy. If the system is taking care of that ordering, that would probably explain why. Another comment we have is notice the Agile Development plugin was inactive, so there is no dependency. Is ATF available to activate out of the box for all upgrades to Istanbul? So yeah, I don't believe there's any dependency on Agile Development. This is a completely separate thing. This is not sort of the tracking of tests. This is the actual definition and running of tests and automating. So those are slightly different things.
All right, I'm trying to just make sure that I have I believe that I have shut down my tab that had the test runner. All right, so now we've got the test runner in Firefox, which, by the way, is how you do browser compatibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, it's not, it's not as sweet as if you had like your Selenium grid and you're clicking off a bunch of check boxes and say, all right, I want you to run this whole suite against Firefox on Linux and Firefox on, OS 12, OS X12 and OS X11 and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a little more manual than that. And by a little more, I mean a lot more. All right. So let's go back and rerun this thing and see what happens. This is, by the way, this is just, think about, like, take a step back to what we're doing here and the fact that we've got people watching us fumble around running tests. And making suggestions. This is a surreal moment of this future we live in. All right, so I'm going to run this test again. Should be picked up by Firefox.
And it looks like it was.
All right, so yeah, this is Josh's suggestion. We have completely removed that from the baggage of anything else that we're doing over here. And
another failure.
Failed. And let's go and see why it failed.
So this time, client says again, a client-side error.
Step results skipped.
Which one?
Client-side JavaScript error was detected on the page being tested.
So this is a little bit different than the one we had before, which is good, I think. I think that means that maybe there's something else going on. Oh, no, it's not.
Async test is not defined. Reference error. Async test is not defined. All right, well, you know what I'm going to do now. Let us see if we can figure out what in the heck.
Async test is, yeah, good call.
Search
if you haven't seen this before, global search is a beautiful thing. So test priority when impact changes, expect one. Is this something with?
Yeah, this. But what we're looking at here, this is not the test framework. This is, this is from my presentation last year, for knowledge. This is from my automated testing lab from last year.
So I'm going to guess that these are completely unrelated. So what I'm guessing is that there's some sort of usage of async test in the automated testing framework that's obviously not quite working.
Right, and this is it could. See, I don't actually know when it's doing these client-side tests. I don't actually know what's executing it. I don't know what's under the hood making these things happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good question. A good point. I would guess, well, based on the fact that they're using async test, it sounds like maybe there's some QUI going on, or QUnit or something.
This may very well be QUnit. So,
do you think you might have some baggage from
my previous use of QUnit?
Yeah, that would be an interesting one.
I wouldn't, never say never. Let's go.
Because you got the error on just the simple form test as well, right?
I did one time,
and then it went away.
And then I got it not another time. And you know what? This is gonna. I think you have to be a maint to even see that.
Can you do actually look to see if you have any global UI scripts that are QUnit? You might be able to just turn them off.
Okay. Well, I knew. Yeah, I do know. I have this right here.
But is this a? Oh yeah.
Let's just try it.
Okay.
Let us just try it. I don't even know. So there's the yeah. So this is stuff that I was doing. This is how you used to have to do things, which is.
Things are so much better now, but by being on the leading edge, that might have actually caused the issue today, which we'll find out.
Saying that they're better, well, we're actually not. All right, so I'm going to run it. Just naively run it. See what happens. Have a sip of this New South white ale while that runs. It's probably the same thing.
And I guess worst case scenario, if we can't get past this, we could switch over to some server-side testing.
Yeah, we can absolutely do. Oh, look at that. Test is not defined.
Ah.
So you know what? New. That is new. We may very, very, very well be looking at the baggage of the sins of my past.
So while we look this up, that is a interesting note for anybody that's tuned in and watching, especially if you were at that knowledge conference session, if you've done any of your own QUnit stuff. We don't know for sure that that's what's going on, but it might be something to keep in mind.
Oh, I can't do it from here. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, let's switch it to global. And let's go ahead and let's look at created by. Although since I'm admin, yeah, everything's created by admin. Let's go ahead and turn this off. Is there any more that are obviously that thing? You just go ahead and give it one more look for.
Anything with lab, yeah. All right, those are both off. Cool. All
right, let's try this one more time and see what happens again. All right.
Might be time for a Z-boot before too long.
Yeah, I think that's not a terrible plan. Oh, look at that!
Oh,
something's happening.
Nice. So it was in fact.
It was in fact my system. The fact that I have QUnit, leftover QUnit from my old lab. Oh, but it went much farther. I'm now curious to see. Oh, well, this is probably now a righteous failure.
Oh yeah, there we go. Because
and in fact, you know what? Look at this. You know what the problem is here? Look at the error message.
The form did not match the condition. Flight ID is not empty.
Because I believe I specified this backwards. Where's my last? That's not my flight ID is not empty. Did I say that it should be empty? Oh, no, I say the condition is flight ID is not empty.
Okay. So in this case, maybe it's just not waiting long enough.
Yeah, so let us try. I'm going to give it, let's go and give it.
Crank it up.
Yeah, let's give it a big honking.
Now, when does the field value change? Does that change? Like, will a user actually see it changing in their UI?
You know what? They won't see it change in the UI. I probably have to reload. You know, in fact, let's not do this. What we don't, discard my changes here because in fact, you are absolutely right. Because so I submitted the form and I'm asserting this on what returned, but that's not what I want. What I want is to add another step, and I'm gonna reload that form. I'm gonna reload that record. Now the question being, how am I gonna get the sysid out of this guy?
Now you might be able to do that, or the sysid out of which? I'm sorry.
So I have just submitted a form.
Yep.
I'll do this and do that so that I can.
Oh yeah, force it back.
Force it back. So here's the thing. I've submitted a form. So this right here, we submit the form. We get the result page. Now, how do I get the sysid from this result page? So it's the sysid of the record that I just submitted.
So, and that's why I don't know exactly, but I know that on those fields, so on subsequent steps where it had that new special field decorator, you're supposed to be able to go back and get output from previous forms. And that might be it.
Open an existing record.
Open an existing.
Let's go ahead and, yeah, I'm going to put this in after submit a form. Let's see.
Yeah, so here, if you click the thing to the right of the record,
document ID.
That would probably be it. Oh, you probably want that on the record, not the view.
Oh, yeah. Why?
So submit a form. Yeah, so at this point, I would think that it would be.
You know what? I think I screwed this up by putting some. Let me go ahead and try this again.
When in doubt, turn it off and on again.
That's exactly what I just did. All right. So when I come back, record is read only. It's mandatory and read only.
Yeah, so you can actually, because I believe it's a document ID field, so you would be able to, if you click the search box, you could look for a specific record. But in this case, I think, I don't know, I'm just speculating here. I think that the record, so if you click document ID, I think this is going to say,
okay,
get the record that was submitted by the submitted form, I think.
Okay. The thing I can't do, the other thing I can't do here is make this guy wait. So this might be where we have to do a custom step. That is a waiting step. All right. So did we do this in the right order? So now we submitted the form. We're going to reload the form. We're going to open that record again with that ID, and then we're going to validate on it. And this is where our timing thing. So I'm doing this as an example, but this is already intrinsically a brittle test.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What were you about to say, Josh?
I was just sorry. I was just going to say that the one other thing too is that with new UI features, because those fields will automatically update, so you might be able to get away with just waiting longer. So in other words, if something updates behind the scenes, even without reloading the form, the field should become populated eventually.
Oh yeah, because of the connect style.
Yeah. That wouldn't work in the past, but with the new UI stuff that we've got.
All right, well, we'll try both of this. So we've done that. Yeah, I had actually forgotten all about that. So we'll give it 10 seconds. Now let's just try this guy again. And again, we're running it. So Firefox is running it, which is still left over from when we testing that hypothesis.
And it's thinking. I do like that you can actually watch this thing going on. That's one of the cooler things about it. So it looked like it refreshed it.
It did refresh it.
Now it's sitting there waiting.
Sitting there waiting. And it's going to fail. And it did fail for exactly the reason we thought it would fail.
So do we know for a fact that, I guess maybe try this directly in the application? So go out there and basically fill out a form exactly the way you just were and make sure that it's doing what. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do that. Let's come over here.
So this is kind of another interesting thing. So when you think about the process of actually building out your tests, you have to test the process of building your tests because.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely
So this is what we're doing. And in fact, let's go ahead and see if I can separate this out. Let's pull my test. I'm going to go to back to my test definition and setting the field values. And what I'm going to do, let's try this so I can hop back and forth easily. I mean, in fact, do exactly the same thing. So start time, flight number.
Now the start time you might have to set, but that should be okay because you're effectively taking the place of the script at this point.
Yeah. Let's see if I think that should. I believe that should. No, it won't. Okay.
So while you're doing that, Philip is saying he's not clear on how we're sending the test to a different window and or browser. So the way the test runner works is the test runner just sits there and it looks for tests.
This guy right here. See this here?
Yeah. Waiting for tests to run. It's basically polling the instance and looking to say, is there anything in a queue for me to run? So you could run this on a browser, on a VM in a data center somewhere. You could run this from anywhere. And as long as it's on that instance, it's going to pick up those tests in the queue. Also, John Caruso was mentioning that there is a client-side console. So, from a debugging standpoint, it might be helpful to look at either the console log of the browser, or I think the test runner itself has a tab for additional debugging output as well. So that's a good point. That's a good thing to look out for.
Debug info.
There's a lot of stuff there.
Absolutely is.
That'll take some time to understand and read.
All right. So you note. So this is the one that I submitted.
And it did populate.
It did, in fact, populate.
How long did that take?
Not long. No, way less than 10 seconds. Let's go ahead and do it again. And
I'm guessing that's having an async business rule?
It's actually a workflow.
Okay, got it.
But the first thing the workflow does is it checks to see whether this is within 2 days, like within 48 hours. And if so, it will go and it'll hit the integration. And so let's do this. 22. I'm going to hit it at 25 seconds just so we can have a feel for how long things take. And I'm going to open this up. And so it's been 5 seconds and it's already there.
Okay.
So by the time I could go back there, yeah, this should be enough. One tool that we do have at our disposal is, let's look at the outbound REST logging.
Oh yeah, that's a good call. See if it's even triggering at all.
Exactly.
And while you're pulling that up, Philip is asking, so how many tests can be tracked or run at once?
Oh, I don't.
And the answer to that is 1. So you can only have, basically these things run in serial. They can't run in parallel, at least not that I'm aware of.
Log levels.
And so basically there's a queue, and what's going to happen is if you queue up multiple tests, it's just going to run through them in sequence.
Oh, whoops, sorry. So do I have to, I don't remember, do I have to specifically tell this one to log? I shouldn't.
You shouldn't have to. And actually, it'll actually go to your outbound REST message log for free. You don't even have to. The only thing you'd have to do is if you wanted additional details. Okay. So you should be able to see.
Outbound, there it is, outbound. It's just called, it's got a slightly different name.
The new feature in Istanbul, and worth mentioning here, so we can actually see the outbound requests in the outbound HTTP.
23. So tell you what, and note, there's only 6 of these jokers. You know what? This didn't even happen. This did not happen at all for any of those tests I ran.
So only ran for the ones that you did by hand, which is pretty interesting.
Which brings an open question, which is the workflow running for that test user?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's go look at the workflow.
Yeah.
Go look at the workflow.
Are there any contexts out there for it?
For my tests. So this is what this is me. Look at that. Nothing between. So the workflow did not happen for my tests.
So is there some kind of, I wonder, does this imply that there's some kind of like don't run, basically workflow false, don't run business rules, that kind of thing? And if that's the case, would that mean you would have to potentially separate out your tests? So these are UI tests. Does the fact that it's a UI test mean that we're not executing some of that server-side functionality? I can't imagine that would be the case.
Yeah, I don't know. So in just I don't mind going over a little bit on here because I'm not ready. Frankly, I'm not ready to stop yet.
Yeah, I'm good with that. We're going to go into bonus time here in about 3 minutes. So
I don't feel like we have to. I don't feel a compunction to stop. So why don't we consider? So let's just assume that this whole strategy doesn't even work. So let's imagine that we want to test this. And we want to do run server-side script. So let's say, we'll assume that I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. So I'll just put it after the impersonate, really. So Jasmine, what would I do? So step result is, I would just add the script I want to happen here. So let's do this. Let's go over to because ultimately what I'm trying to do is just I'm trying to verify that that this thing works. Let's go over to my script include. Let's go over
well, actually, if you were to do you even need to do the script include, or do you simply need to do a glide record query into that table? To
well, no, yeah, but the same thing is
the same problem going to be the case?
It's the same problem because the workflow never happened.
Right.
So my script include is flight aware utils. So that's what I'm going to do this. And now again, where am I? Okay.
Plus, when you do this, well, no, you can't debug it. I was going to say you can fire up the debugger, but that is happening asynchronously.
Flatware utils.
And while you're typing that, I'm just checking chat. So John mentioned that have you tried impersonating the test user and seeing that things work interactively? So I think the point that John's making is
that the test user can even do what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So
that's a great point. Let's do that one more. Let's do that one time before I even carry forward with that.
Definitely a lower challenge in getting that done than potentially this other thing. So we'll find out.
All right, so we're going to do this. Okay, so here's what he's saying is travel tracker ATF user.
Yep.
And we go and just create a flight.
Yeah, because maybe there's something else going on. Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. Thank you. Some of the time, the simplest things are not so apparent when you're on a live call. So we very much appreciate all of the input from the chat.
Just as a quick reminder for this data structure, the only thing it really needs to look this up is it needs the flight number and the origin and the day. Those are really the three things that uniquely define what would have this flight ID. So let's go ahead and submit. Let's see if it can submit. And then,
Oh, interesting.
Now,
is there OAuth involved in this whole picture?
There is not OAuth.
Okay. Just trying to think of things that one user would have that the other user does not. So at this point, we might need to fire up some debug logs or something. It feels like, how would that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
What about your workflow?
This might be, so this could be the problem. So we may actually be exposing a more fundamental problem, which is
it just doesn't work with a non-admin.
It just doesn't work with a non-admin user. Exactly. Which is, by the way,
part of the
test. Exactly. Success of the test case. All right. So who was it that made that suggestion?
That's John Caruso.
John Caruso, you're the MVP of this happy hour because you, in fact, did expose the problem. So, so that exposes actually a fundamental flaw in kind of the approach that we took. Now, part of this is a demo thing, but we probably should consider going as basic as possible, which is create user, do the thing as user, verify it works as user before you invest any time in your test steps, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah, so in other words, automated testing is not a replacement or an alternative for your basic development testing that you should be doing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So let's look at the system log. See.
There's got to be something there. Oh, there's something. Group does not exist.
Group undefined.
Don't know.
So somebody, so the ATF user, group does not exist. And we're probably, you know what? And I'll bet if we look, let's just go and look at this error. It's gonna be the same every time. I wonder if I can even show matching on this full text.
Oh, you can. Nice.
And I'm going to assume that we're going to see this for all our tests. All right, so whatever this error is, this is actually happening everything, whether we ran it. So this is ATF, travel tracker ATF user trying to do this. So group does not exist. So at this point, actually, I feel good in saying that this is clearly the application's problem, not the test framework's problem.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you wanted to get around that, you could just temporarily, this is bad, but temporarily give your ATF test user admin access.
Yeah, let us do that for just solely to see this thing, to try to see if we can get this thing to. So what we're going to do, can I make this? Let's just make this step inactive.
Yep.
We're not going to impersonate. We're just going to run as admin.
Oh yeah, even better. So no impersonation. Cool.
Go back to my test and run it one time. And in fact, let me open existing record. Yeah. Okay. Let's run this test and see what happens.
And Philip says, test your tests. And yep, you're absolutely correct.
Testing our test, and we're failing the testing of our test.
That can get really confusing. Testception. And in another interesting thing while this is running, oh, you're on your debug tab, oh wait, did that not go?
I don't even see it beginning. Oh, let's go ahead.
Step one.
Cancel. Yes, I want to let's look and see. Do we have waiting? No, we don't have anything waiting. Why did that not run at all?
Maybe refresh your test runner window just to be safe.
We've done some weird stuff.
Yeah, we've been all over the place.
This is probably going to, yeah, so let's go ahead and. Let's go back to that. Let's go back to my test.
There we go.
Oh, look at that.
Now we're talking. So some inexplicable thing with roles impacting the ability to run a workflow. That sounds pretty interesting. That will be a, I'm very curious to hear what is causing that.
Okay, so now, so we actually, let me do one more thing. So let us, I want to get rid of this step because put that in there naively trying to do a thing. I want to delete this test.
Yeah, we shouldn't need it.
But we shouldn't need it. It should just work without it. Did it renumber? It did renumber.
Okay.
That's kind of, I think that goes maybe a little to the question about the execution order. Let me go in here. I think maybe you can't even, like it's not even exposed on there. Oh, it is. Okay. What happens if I set it to something crazy? Do that?
So it's probably always going to say make it relative to whatever you set it. So if you made 5.4, it would probably.
Yeah, and now I did. Now I screwed up. So where I want that to go open form, set field value. So I want it to be 4. Let's say. But I wish I had not goofed around with that.
But we do this so you all don't have to.
Refresh the list. All right, that's where we want it to be. All right, we're going to run this one more time. So now we should. So we took out that thing. It's waiting, 3 seconds. So we should see everything working. Setting field values. It's submitting. You see that the flight ID populated almost immediately. It's taking a screenshot, sending the server, and then it succeeded. So this, in fact, so test framework, we didn't do exactly what we wanted to do, but we found a bug before we even finished with the thing, which is that a non-admin user can't even use this. So we have actually exposed extremely fundamental problem like from the get-go. So absolutely worth doing. So yeah, that's the thing. I'll probably fix that offline, and then I don't know if we'll do it next week, but the next time we return to this, I'll have fixed that portion, and we can kind of do other stuff. So, all right, we want to make a last sweep for questions.
Yep, I will take a look. So it looks like we are.
Comments. I'm going to de-share.
Up to date on questions over in the chat. I don't see anything on the Slack channel, so I think we are in the clear.
Okay. All right, I'm unsharing, and let me unpresent. Okay, and we should be back to, everything should be back to normal. So anyway, what do you rate your cold brew coffee there, Josh?
So the Stumptown cold brew coffee is delicious. It's a solid 5 stars.
Oh my goodness, strong. That's a strong. All right, my New South Ale. My New South white ale, no surprises. I've had this many times. I have it on draft. Like in downtown Myrtle Beach, you'll go by. I think, in fact, the building is like right next to the giant Anheuser-Busch bottling building. They're like adjacent to each other. There's like a vacant lot between the two of them. So like 3.25, 3.5. I mean, I'm not at all surprised by anything, but I enjoy it. I've been mostly talking and not drinking. So a salute to you. Salute. And to everyone in the chat, and to John Caruso for his excellent suggestion.
And welcome back to Live Coding Happy Hour for 2017.
All right, so this is we didn't actually we didn't cover as much ground as I expected, but it definitely, I mean, it shows what you're going to do, right? Step one is we had a very fundamental assumption that we got to fix, and we were going to find it sooner or later, and thank goodness we found it sooner, right? Somewhere along the line, somebody who's not, we're going to give some ordinary user this. and I'm glad it was the test user and not Chris Pope. So,
yeah, exactly.
Wants this to be where he can beta test it.
And the question did come through: is that an issue with ATF or your app? And that is an issue with the app. So
it's
ATF,
my app,
ATF was not the issue here. There's some kind of underlying thing that didn't allow the app to work unless the app had admin access.
Right. And that was so that's how, and the thing that happened there, to go back and just be clear on that, is we uncovered that part when I impersonated the ATF user, and then I just went and created the form. So I submitted the same 3 values, and what we expected to see is it would kick the workflow off, it would populate that, which is exactly what it does. You know, when we do the same 3 values as admin, everything works. And then we went to the logs and looked at it, and we saw that there was errors in the log related to something that is trying to get possibly, and I'll try to keep a record of exactly what the error was so I can be explicit on it next time we convene on this topic. But I think maybe something about one of the activities, although I gave it the rights to I gave it the 5 roles that are defined in my scope for the 5 types of records, but it may be that some of the logic of that activity is getting a table that this user doesn't have access to. And I just didn't think about it, right? So like one of the things it's using to evaluate like whether it can run or not is in fact something it doesn't have access to. So I've got an assumption that is violated by the running of this as a non-admin.
Yep.
Which is again one of the problems of running and testing and developing as admin. So, well, all right, this is so much fun.
I agree. I'm so glad this is back.
Oh my God, there is a reason why we have this job, and that's because we're stone cold nerds and we enjoy doing this, right? And so, like getting together, honestly, we've been doing a workshop and we've been doing administrative stuff. I haven't done much coding in the last since before Christmas. So this is fun. It's what we do. The one of the secrets, it's not such a secret, is that this whole reason, one of the reasons we do this, well, we got 2 big things. One is so we can drink beer on company hours and make it a job function. And the other is just a forcing function to sit down and code for an hour every week. Like if nothing else, we got an hour, we know we're going to do dev.
And now we know more about ATF. We've hopefully helped people learn some things that they don't have to on their own. So
yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to, I don't know, we'll decide. We usually decide in the early mid part of the week exactly what the topic is. We may do this again next week. We may do something different, but there will be more of this. And when we do, we'll basically start from this point and carry forward.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating. If you're watching it later, thanks for hanging in there. And we still don't have
a good weekend.
We need a catchphrase. All right. Talk to y'all next time, everybody.
See ya.